Okay, so the next talk is about inspiring data actually stretching back quite a while ago, going to what the effects were of the GATT bilateral trade agreement on international trade.
Many years ago.
Many years ago.
Thank you, and thank you for organizing this beautiful workshop and this inspiring week of discussion. And the paper that I'm presenting to you is the title is there, so you can see it. Bunch of these words are for specialists. The one, of course, is for GATT. Many of you maybe don't know the GATT, and I will talk a little bit. But apart from that, this is a joint work with Bruno Arpino, which is at Pompeu Fabra, and Alessandra Mattei, which is at Florence. You already had two presentations by Italians, one on time series, one on Bayesian graphs, and the third one will be different as well. So not all Italians are made the same. But you will judge what is the best of them, but I have my preferences. Okay, so let me start from explaining to you what the problem is. So, working on network data, we appreciate the value of interdependence. This is why I think all of us share one feature, which is the fact that there is something which is linked to something else. Okay, so international trade, I'm an economist. I've been working a lot on international trade data, and this is a very evident case of interdependence between countries. So if a firm of a country is selling a product to a foreign market, he has to decide if he wants to pick the market A or instead sending to market B. If not sending to market A, customers in market A will be affected by that. They will choose a similar product with a higher price. So basically market A, B, and C are all them connected through the choices of firms and customers. So basically every choice is associated to an opportunity cost. And this is what is generating the interdependence in trade. So my example was on firms and individual consumers. If you aggregate this because of data constraints, basically we don't have precise data at the individual level. You have information coming from national statistics on international trade aggregated at the macro level. So you have exports and imports. You can disaggregate them according to products. So you can do maybe multi-layer analysis on this data as well. And also you have a transmission mechanism that can be very much complicated. So basically, the data that we are using is this kind of structure. So we have countries here and countries here. So this is really a trade matrix. This is the main diagonal, as you know. And when you have black spots there is no trade between countries. And when there is a white or grayish thing that you cannot really see, there is some trade. Okay, this is the data that we are using. This is our network. So it's a trade network. So the nodes are the countries, and the edges are trade flows. Okay, so you can measure it. You can use a directed network examining only exports or imports. You can analyze trade as an average of the two. For the moment, it doesn't matter. Okay, so but where interdependence comes into the picture? Well, if you want to analyze the effect and the causal effect of trade policy, because trade policy by government is changing. It's changing the incentive for firms to export in a certain market, because, for example, those exports by a firm get taxed at the border in a certain country while they are not taxed in another country. Okay, so policy by government can change the incentive for firms and also for consumers, because if you buy a certain good at a certain price, this depends also on all the taxes that the government imposed when the foreign good pass the border. So trade policies essentially is modifying the structure of the, not really, well, also the structure of the data, but the characteristics, the value which are associated to each cell of this matrix. So if you want to analyze the causal effect of imposing a trade policy, a trade barrier attacks on international trade flows. Well, what you should do, well, you should enter in the very simple word, borrowing the cartoon that Ernst was using in yesterday's presentation. We are in this kind of world, very simple one. So you want to analyze the effect, the causal effect of imposing a tariff on the level of trade that you will observe an instant after the imposition of that tariff. And then the time dimension will be 1 year in our example. Okay? So you really want to go toward causality. Why causality? Because well, if you want to evaluate policy intervention, you need to restrict your analysis to something where you, as much as you can, you should link the effect, the policy to the effect of the policy. Okay? So, and this is problematic. So we don't live in a randomized kind of setting. Instead, we observe the data. So the data is observational. So how can you structure the problem in a way that you can control and you can define properly the causal effect? Well, when you have interdependence, this interdependence can interfere into the classical problem of causality through these two mechanisms. The first one is the selection of the mechanism. So who is the meaningful control group that you have to analyze? So if you want to analyze countries that were exposed to the treatment, well, which are the countries that you have to put in the control group? The second issue is the violation of what is called SUTVA, the stable unit treatment value assumption. So the fact that an individual that gets treated, you can observe only two outcomes of that. If it's treated, you observe the outcome associated to the treatment. If it's not treated, you observe just the outcome if it's not treated. The problem is with interdependence, maybe an individual is treated and you observe the outcome, but maybe that outcome depends on the fact that another individual got treated and that individual is linked to the individual that you are observing now. So what I will do in this paper, I will just avoid the second problem, which is the complicated one, and I will present a possible solution for the first problem. Okay? So, and the application will be on GATT membership. Why the GATT? Well, as I said, I'm a trade economist, so I'm interested in international trade, but also because the treatment here, it's very simplistic, or let's say it's very simple. You want to examine the effect of a pair of countries being both members of the GATT. So you have a yes-no question, and so the treatment is very simple. So it's 0-1. So you don't enter into the problem of multiple treatment, dose response, etc., etc. You can extend the framework to that, and we're working on that. But for the moment, let's stick to the very simple problem. Okay, and then let me just talk about the GATT. So the presentation will give you a brief history of the GATT, and then I will explain you the data, and I will talk about the propensity score matching methodology that is used, and extend this to network data, as you saw. And then the final point will be an evaluation of the GATT. Okay, so so you should go. What did I do? Okay, that's the end. Yes.
Maybe use the arrows. That might always work.
this is working, but this is not. Well, anyway. The GATT is it's an acronym for General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. It was established in immediately after Second World War. He had a precise goal, which is the one which is stated there, to remove or diminish barriers would impede the flow of international trade, and to encourage by all available means the expansion of commerce. This is the main goal of this agreement. Why? Because in between World War I and World War II, countries were using a lot protectionist policies, and those protectionist policies are shown by historians as one of the main causes of the political instabilities in the 30s in Europe, and basically ended out in the Second World War. So countries that won the war decided to constrain the possibilities of single countries to use protectionist policies. And so they decided to establish an agreement which is called the GATT. So the GATT defined, thank you. Defines the rules that govern trade policy. So basically countries which are members of the GATT, that were members, the GATT now is not existing anymore, is changed and is a proper institution. It's called the WTO. Maybe you know that. So members of the GATT could not use certain policies, so they could not increase tariffs. They had to pursue a multilateral strategy of a reduction of those strategies. So during rounds, countries were meeting together, deciding a reduction in the level of tariffs in order to by all means expand in international trade. Okay, so this is the effect of this is the structure, basic structure of the role of the GATT, and how the GATT pursued that role. So GATT members can enter into the GATT. There are formal members, and also there are non-members participants. So maybe countries which are in a special situation, former colonies, small countries, islands. This is not really important. So if we want to evaluate the effect of being a member of the GATT, what we can do? Basically, when we can follow Andrew Rose, which is at the University of Berkeley. So he took a whole bunch of data on international trade flows. He constructed a model, and sort of natural model that I will talk briefly, maybe 5 minutes from now. So this is a model of international trade, and then he had just a dummy variable who was associated to being a member of GATT or not. The result was striking for international trade economists, because the institution who was there to promote trade had no effect at all on international trade. So this result was really striking. So many papers came out in order to validate the analysis by Andy Rose. We take a very different perspective. We are not interested in applying to this data longitudinal method with fixed effects and etc., etc. We want to analyze this in a proper causal framework. So we will examine the effect of GATT in just 1 year, so between 54 and 55. Why 54 and 55? Well, this is the history of the GATT in one slide. So starting from the 50s, this line is the increase in the number of GATT members. Those are the round, the yellow bars are the round. So why we decided just to focus on this year? Because we want the GATT members to be stable during the period when we analyze the effect of the treatment. Okay, so we have possible candidates: this one, this one, this one. So we concentrate on this one. Why going so far in the past? Well, you will see it in a second. But the number of members is becoming so large at present days that basically it's difficult to build a meaningful counterfactual. So to find a couple of countries which are not GATT members. Oh, we're not GATT members. So in order to evaluate the methodology that we are proposing, that we are proposing, we went back to the 50s. Okay, so this is the structure of our network. Nodes are countries, edges are trade flows. If you don't observe an edge, it's just because the country, those countries do not trade with each other, or to be honest, we don't have data reported in that year for a bilateral trade. And if you observe it in 54, this is the trade network, many more countries, many more edges. And the red edges are identifying in the picture the two nodes where both countries are members of the GATT. Okay, so basically those countries are the one that I will consider as treated. Okay, and the black edges are the one which are associated to countries, pair of countries, which I will consider as possible members of the counterfactual. Okay. Okay. So let me go first on a very basic analysis of the Rubin causal model. So we have a group of country dyads. So the IJ identifier, the index is IJ, so it goes from 1 n countries. So the maximum possible of interaction is n times n minus 1. So Tij is participation of both countries to the GATT. You have a 0 or a 1 if both. You have a 0 if they are not all country or both countries are member of the GATT. If you have a 1 if both countries are member of the GATT. And the outcome variable here is very precise. You need to be very precise if you want to evaluate certain policy in terms of outcome. Well, this is bilateral trade. So it's the log of average imports and exports in 55. So you want to examine that, and this is why the network, the trade network, is undirected. Okay, so it's an average between export and import. Why? This is the outcome that we analyzed. This is because the most important outcome that you want to analyze. I would prefer doing something else, but this is the outcome that was used by Henry Rose in this paper in the American Economist. So we want to have a benchmark in order to evaluate what we are doing with respect to the traditional analysis. And we impose the SUTVA, so the stable unit treatment value assumption. So for every country, every pair of countries, you can only have a 0 or a 1, so a potential bilateral trade if dyad is none of the two countries is a GATT member, or just one of them is a GATT member, and then you have a potential bilateral trade if both countries are. So if you would examine this starting from scratch, well, you just have to examine the difference in expectations, so mean basically, and this is called the average treatment effect. The problem is you don't observe contemporaneously a country pair if both are part of the GATT, and the same country pair if they are not part of GATT. So what you have to do, well, you have to approximate what you will do through randomization of this process, and you have to rely on something that is making analysis on observational data similar to randomization. So what you take covariates, so pre-treatment variables, and in this case includes country-specific characteristic or dyad-specific characteristics, and conditional on that, you construct counterfactual. So a group of countries which are according to the covariates, which are pre-treatment variables, can be matched with the one which are treated. Okay, so in this case, you observe only one potential outcome, as I said, and so if you don't do this matching procedure, you are running the fundamental problem of causal inference, so you cannot observe this thing. So the problem is how to assign pairs to the counterfactual. So what we based on is on the analysis by Rosenbaum and Rubin. So we take covariates X, and we rely on the assignment mechanism that is based on two elements. The first one is called unconfoundedness. So conditional on the fact that you observe X, basic on conditional independence assumption, you can say that the fact of pair of countries being treated instead of non-treated is independent of the treatment effect. So basically, you can be either treated or non-treated. And the second one is positivity. So the fact that the probability of being treated for every country goes from 0 to 1. So you have the same, you have a probability of being chosen if you are treated or non-treated. Basically, this can be translated to the fact that you have to examine this pair of countries on the same support. So you cannot have a pair of country which is a GATT member, which is very far apart from another pair of country which is not a member. So the problem is, what if you have many X's? A very convenient way is to use again what is proposed in the literature by Rosenbaum and Rubin is called the propensity score. What is the propensity score? Is nothing more than the probability of getting treated conditional on the variables that you observe pre-treatment. So what you do, you have to examine this propensity score, and you can compare pairs only based on the propensity score. So you don't have to make a multi-dimensional comparison, but you can just collapse all the dimension of the covariates on the propensity score and just do matching on one single element. This is has been shown to be totally equivalent to something more complex like Malan-Orbis distance. Okay, so and strong ignorability, so it holds if you, on the propensity score if it holds on the whole set of covariates. Okay, so if you are able to derive the propensity score, so that means that the probability of being treated or non-treated is between 0 and 1. So not that one group is never possible, has never possibly chosen. Well, then you can safely start analyzing the effect of being treated on the possible outcome. Okay, so this is exactly what we do. The problem is we don't know the propensity score. So we don't have it. We have to estimate it. How we estimate it? We do basic logistic regression. And G is a function of covariates, all the covariates that we can get the hand on. And we don't impose any structure on the functional form, so linear or higher order terms are included in the logit regression, and the purpose of using such a sort of agnostic view is not because we have a precise model in mind. We will rely on a selection mechanism of covariates based on something that I will present in a second, but we don't want to constrain our analysis on a specific functional form. So we want to be agnostic. And then, so after that we use a matching procedure on the estimated propensity score. So every pair is associated with a propensity score, and we matched the one which are in the treated group. So both countries are GATT members with all the rest of the country to see if to select the countries that enters into the counterfactual. Okay. And this is, for the moment, is something that you will study also in statistical courses, so nothing specifically new. The new part is this one. Okay, so what if we have data which is characterized by a structure, a network structure. Okay, so our solution is just to include into the covariates that you have to take into account in order to construct the propensity score. You have to include also information that comes from the network, so from the structure of the network. And so this is applying not only to GATT, not only to international trade, but is applying more widely on every problem where we have to analyze the impact of something. And could be a policy, could be whatever you prefer. and you have observations or individuals that gets treated, but also they interact with themselves. So imagine an epidemiological study. You want to analyze the effect of a vaccine. You have to, but you observe that individuals that get treated and non-treated, they interact with themselves. So you have to take into account the fact that the structure of the links of this population that you are from which you are selecting your two samples, it's as a structure of connections. Okay, so what we do in this paper is just to include network structure amongst the variables that you put into the propensity score. Okay, so which are the variables? Those variables are network characteristics. If you don't take them into account, what we prove is that you can get a bias in the propensity score. So you are not able to capture the effect of interdependence through considering all other variables, also the one at the dyadic level. So basically there is no good substitute for including the structure of the observations through other covariates. Okay, so which are the network statistics is degree centrality. So based on centrality, we go for a local measure of centrality, the most easy one. Then we define the eigenvector centrality, and because we want also to have a global measure of centrality, we also calculate local transitivities to have a measure of local clustering, and also we obtain network communities because we wanted to analyze if there was a tendency to cluster at the global level in the trade network. Okay, so we did this and this and this, and then the network communities, we have two versions of them, and we use both of them. Okay, this I don't need. Just to give you a flavor of what is the effect of excluding those network statistics from the propensity score, if you just compare the distribution of degrees between countries which are non-members of the GATT, this is the black kernel, and this is the red kernel is the degree distribution of members of pair of countries which are members of the GATT. And here is the same is for eigenvector. So basically you have a very different structure if you don't consider that structure in the propensity score. Basically you're biasing your analysis. Okay, so what we do is we apply this to the data that we have. So the outcome, as I said, is bilateral trade. The treatment is being member of a GATT. I and J both are members of the GATT. The covariate comes from the gravity model of international trade, and there is no better place to talk about the gravity model than this institute. Basically, the gravity model is applied to international trade. Is saying that trade between country I and country J depends on the product of the masses of the two countries, basically GDP, and is inversely related to the distance between country I and country J. So distance plays a strong role. in the gravity model. And what is real distance? So it cannot only be physical distance, but distance is distance in a social, cultural, economic sense. So you can put, I don't know, having a common language, having a common past, or being colonized by the same colonial power, or physical distance, like the land border. So, and also being part of a currency union or regional free trade agreement also is decreasing the effect of the physical distance. This is what the gravity model is doing, basically taking measures of the masses of the two countries, taking measures of the distance between the two countries, and evaluating adding to that trade policy and evaluating the effect of that trade policy on trade flows. Okay, so what we do, we take this set of covariates, and those covariates, we call them X, all of them. So if you just construct the propensity score for X, and you examine after matching the pairs of countries which are in the treated group and the one which are in the control group, as you see, the matching procedure is able to rebalance the two groups according to the covariates which enter into X, but they are never able to rebalance the structure. This is N, so is the variables which come from the structure of the network. So through this rebalancing procedure, you're never able to let's say, find a possible alternative in considering the structure of trade. Okay, so only using N, or even just the degree centrality, is sufficient to reduce what is the an imbalances between the two groups. The better thing is to control for all those network statistics, and this is just a picture of the same effect. So this is the difference between the two groups in if you have the raw data. So, and those are the network variable that were constructed. So if you don't rebalance, you are very far away between the two groups, and the distance, the absolute standardized bias between the two is decreased and decreased and decreased in using more network variables. Okay, so what in terms of support? Well, if you just take into account the covariates which are not associated to the structure of the network, well, there are 5 of these pairs that will not match, so you have to exclude them from the analysis. Instead, if you take into account also the network statistics, many more of them should be excluded from the analysis. Okay, so it's 70 of pairs that should be excluded. Why? Because you don't really observe any possible matching between a pair of countries, like, I don't know, big countries like US and Canada, and a small group of countries. So there is not really the possibility of rebalancing in that case. Okay, so you have to exclude that in if you want to. How much time do you have?
We have another 1 minute.
Okay.
It's actually 2 minutes.
So what we obtain finally is the average treatment effect. If you don't control for networks, this is the you have a positive effect of being a GATT member in 54 on the outcome, which is trade flows in 55. If you control for network statistics, this positive effect is reduced. Okay, so quantifying that, if you take into account yes, the network in the propensity score, you have a 34% of the of trade, which is higher between GATT members than with respect to possible alternatives. If you don't consider those network statistics, you have a bias, which is we don't call it a bias in the paper because we don't have a full control of the data generating process. So we are going for simulations, but for sure there is a upward tendency of not considering the effect of interdependence. So the explanation is that some of the positive effect of trade liberalization between countries which are member gets transmitted to other countries which are not. So if you compare them, the difference between them is reduced. So, okay, that's what's in the paper. What can be asked after that? So, are those network statistics the right statistics to consider? We don't have any possible selection mechanism to use in order to see if the degree centrality is better than the I don't know, another possible alternative. So are those the right statistics, or are those the sufficient statistics in order to analyze the effect of the structure? Do we have to analyze monadic or dyadic network statistics? And also the main problem is that the second part. So once you have rebalanced the two groups and you have built meaningfully the counterfactual, if you want to examine the possible transmission of the effect of being a GATT member of whatever level of treatment on also possibly to the control group through the interference that is generated by this interdependence, well, you have to to go beyond the stable unit treatment value assumption and build a transmission mechanism. So you will have many more possible outcomes depending on the structure of the network, and this is where we are going. Thank you.
Okay, questions? Yep.
So your conclusion that there is an increase of 30%, so that doesn't agree with the previous analysis that you mentioned?
Well, the two analyses are really not comparable, because the analysis done by Andrew Rose is the average effect that you have from being both countries being a GATT member a long time, from the 47 to 2000 and something. So it takes into account the variability a long time, and this is a general effect of being part of GATT. Instead, we are very much concentrated on a local effect. So after 1 year, what will be the effect of being GATT member with respect to the counterfactual? So in Rose analysis, or in traditional analysis using longitudinal methods, you don't really have a clean counterfactual, even if you use fixed effects, and also you don't rebalance properly the control group and the treater group. So I would say that those two results are not really comparable. There is not much in the paper just because of that. One is very local effect, the one that we are proposing, that we are studying. The second one is a very broad and effect that is averaging out a long time.
Also, to see if you got the right statistics, you can see if the propensity scores, if you condition on them and divide, you can try to see if there is independence that you need.
What you mean?
So the main assumption is that conditioned on the propensity score, you have independence of, you know, whatever you show.
Okay, so you wanted to.
You can at least look at it.
Okay, that can be done. I'm sure the SUTVA is violated, so this is just more of showing the first step of something that has to be done if you wanted to fully control from the fact that the data is structured as a network.
Questions?
I think the time, the year you choose is a little bit confusing, because at that time it's Cold War, right? So there are two groups of countries in the world, so perhaps those treating difference is introduced by the political reasons, not only GATT or something like that. So we'll take into account those kind of things.
Well, and during the first part of the the GATT, since the Soviet Union was one of the countries that won the war, he was one of the most active participants of the GATT. So, and the Comecon group of countries just exit from GATT in the mid of the 50s. So I think it's the period immediately after of that. But if you think that political systems are an important variable, you just have to put them in the propensity score and to control for political differences. So maybe the result is biased because of that. I cannot put my hand on fire, but there is a very quick solution to the problem.
Isn't that in the gravity model considered?
Well, there are many gravity models. So the one used by political sciences, of course, there is this issue of not only of difference in political system, but how conflict is influencing trade. So you can use also political variables and use them in the propensity score. This has been done already. And yeah.
No questions? No? So let's thank, besides Luca, all the speakers of this particular session, and we'll be reconvening in about half an hour.
Thank you.